It is 6 o'clock. I'll call this regular city council meeting to order. If you will rise, we'll have an invocation followed by the pledge.
Heavenly Father, Lord, we thank you for this day. We just thank you for all the blessings that you've given us, Lord. Father, we just ask that you just grant us wisdom and guide us, Lord. We conduct city business, Lord. Just forgive us, Lord. Thank you. First in Christ's name, Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
If y'all want to speak on that agenda item, you need to sign.
Oh, nice. What do I sign in?
Right.
That one?
This time we will have a public comment on all agenda items. If you want to speak about a particular agenda item, please approach the diocese, give your name and address for the record, and you have 3 minutes to speak. Janine, who's up first?
Did you want to speak at this time or at the public hearing? Okay, go ahead.
Mayor, City Council, most of y'all know me, but my name's Corinne Collins. I live at 1216 West 12th Street, and tonight you guys are considering an ordinance prohibiting habitation of a building without utilities. It is my greatest hope that this ordinance will pass. 3 years ago, I inherited a house. What I didn't know when I inherited the house was the house next door is a flop house. For those who don't know, that's a house where drug addicts and people straight out of jail tend to congregate. My house is right behind the high school. And during cross-country season, the kids are out there running at 5 a.m. The individuals that go to this house next door to me are walking back to this house at 5 a.m. Over the last 3 years, I have called the police department 18 times on this house. Aside from the last one, the last 3 times have been for theft of water. They've had the water shut off. I had a 2-week water analysis ran on my water, and it showed that on 9 different occasions, my water had been stolen. Of those occasions, only 1 time did I physically catch them in the act, which you have to do for theft, and the individual was arrested. Littlefield Police Department has done their absolute best to try to help myself and my neighborhood deal with this house to no avail. So now, when I go to work, not only do I have to worry about the dangers I face at work, but now I also have to worry about who's stealing water from me in my house. Now my focus is not on my job, but also on my home. This new ordinance will go a long way in helping Littlefield PD and the city be able to help citizens like myself to deal with houses like this. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Next, Mr. Christ, or did you start?
Yes. Guys, I have a
Name and
question.
address for the record,
Oh.
please.
922 Martin Luther King Jr. Boulevard. I live in the Dunbar neighborhood. The reason I approach you today is I living in the Dunbar neighborhood, we come across trucks all the time. I mean, I see semi-trucks on a constant basis. And the reason I approach you is I want to know why we've never built a truck stop in this city. Because, I mean, unless you don't realize it, in less than maybe next year, we've got $1 billion cheese factory going in Lubbock. And where is all that milk coming from? You got Amherst, you got all the guys from New Mexico, and you've got product that has to come in through 84. So there's going to be a lot more traffic coming through there because they're supplying a $1 billion cheese factory. And I'll give you an example. Yesterday evening, I came back from the hospital, 3 o'clock in the morning, and there's a Target truck parked in a bar ditch there because he had no place to sleep. I called the police not because I didn't like the guy. I felt scared for him because 385 is pretty dangerous. Some people don't pay attention. And that guy, I was afraid that guy was going to get slammed, hit, because he's right there, right at the corner, just before the railroad station. And, I'm afraid some car is going to come down that highway, not paying attention, or, they're half asleep, and slam right into that truck. And a lot of those guys have no place to park. You can go to Stripes, but they don't want to park there because they got a place to get a shower, they ain't got a place to do their clothes, and they ain't got a place to get a decent bite to eat. And for this community, even though it may seem, a smaller community, that would be helpful for a lot of people. Provides jobs, provides a lot of different things for this community. And that's all I've got to say.
We can't respond to you because we don't have an agenda item covering that topic, but if you'd
Right.
like to discuss it afterwards,
Sure,
we'd be happy
Sure,
to.
absolutely.
Janine, any more?
Yes, sir, Janie Duran.
Mr. Rand, you approach the diocese.
Well, no, but you asked for comments, so I didn't know if you wanted.
I'm just wanting if I see,
Name and address.
oh, Janie Duran, 716 East 11th Street. And we had bid on the property at 101 Greenfield, and I'm just here to see if maybe y'all can tell us who won the bid. We want to, it's been in the family, in the Duran family, and we wanted to get it back.
That's an action item on the agenda later on.
Yeah, we'll discuss that.
Okay.
We'll get to that.
Thank you.
Any further comments? Mentioning new city employees?
Yes, but they are not here. Couldn't make it.
You'll make the next one.
Okay, all right.
In the water department.
Then John,
John Tierno.
I got that back.
Next, we'll consider and approve minutes from the October 24th and November 14th meetings. If there are no additions or corrections, can we get a motion to approve the minutes as well?
Make a motion to approve the minutes from the October 24th and November 14th meeting. I'll second.
Motion's been made by Kenny, seconded by Eric. All in favor, say aye. Aye. All opposed, motion carries. Next, we'll consider and approve the monthly departmental reports. If you have any questions, please identify at the table. If there are no questions on any of the departmental reports, can I get a motion to approve the reports?
Make a motion we approve the monthly departmental reports. I'll second that.
Motion's been made by Kenny, seconded by Eric. Is there any further discussion? If none, all in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed, the motion carries. Next, we'll consider and approve October expenses. If you have a question, please identify the page. There are no questions on the monthly expenses. Can we get a motion to approve those?
I said motion to consider and approve October expenses. Second.
Motion's been made by Eric, seconded by Kenny. Any further questions? All in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed? The motion carries. Next, we will consider and approve a direction regarding, Next, we will consider and approve a direction regarding ground storage water tank and funding and a presentation from Harkless Engineering.
All right, I appreciate this time. My name is Leonard Nell from Park Hill. And Mitch and I have been looking at this tank for a while. There was two options we looked at, both steel and concrete. In front of you is both for a 3 million gallon concrete tank and for a 3 million gallon steel tank. Once you get above 1 million gallons, the concrete and the steel, concrete's gonna be a little cheaper. Below 1 million gallons, they're pretty comparable as far as steel and concrete. We just, we did 2 steel tanks in Florida, 700,000 gallon tanks. The steel was 1.3 and the concrete was 1.1. So, to give you an idea of what these are. What I gave you was there's 2 options on there. The 3 million gallon concrete storage tank construction. These numbers are from like 3 days ago, 2 or 3. You got new numbers from the concrete tank individual company. The second page is a 3 million gallon steel tank. These numbers were about a year old, so we put a 5% increase on those. It may be a little lower, but you notice that the steel tank is about $1 million more expensive than the concrete tank. The last page on this, Jessica went through and had her do a 4-year cost of ownership comparison for both, on the very last page, for both the steel and the concrete. One thing about the steel tank is you need to plan on about every 20 years or so to recoat those tanks. So that's where you're gonna get it. It's almost $1 million, $900,000 to recoat that steel tank. And I would recommend if you did that to do 2 1.5 million gallon tanks on steel, so you could take one out of service while you repaired or coated the last one. I wouldn't wait the 20 years to say, oh, we're gonna have to recoat that tank in 2 years, because this may put you in a bind. But those were the 2 options that we looked at. Over that 40-year life cycle, you'll see that the steel tank's almost, 5.6 million if you take that into account. The concrete tank, pretty much there's no maintenance to speak of except your yearly inspection, which is required by TCQ for both. So it's a pretty flat line. But those are what we've noticed. You have an option. We've done that before, where you go out to bid just not knowing the market, because some of it hasn't stabilized quite. You can do an option where you bid it with both a concrete and a steel and just see where the numbers fall. I mean, you do both. You'll do one as an additive alternate in lieu of, say, bid item number 5 for concrete, just to see what the steel tank, see how hungry they are. But as far as if you ask me which one I would recommend, would be the concrete tank, because it don't seem right, but it's just more economical.
Why would you recommend a concrete? I mean, take away the price and all that stuff. What in your opinion makes a concrete tank better than a steel tank, other than the maintenance?
The maintenance is one of them, because you don't have to take it down ever. Really, I mean, once a concrete tank's there, I've never seen a maintenance issue at all. I'd recommend a geodetic dome. A lot of times what they did when they built these tanks back in the 50s, and the longevity of a concrete tank is going to be a little bit longer than a steel, but a steel is still a really good tank if you'll maintain it, do the maintenance on it. They'll last forever too. But they used to make tanks back in the 60s that had a flat top. And those, over the years, would start ponding, and TCQ would get them pretty bad. But as far as concrete, once it's there, there's not a whole lot of, it's kind of like a facultative lagoon on a wastewater plant. You don't have to, there's not a lot of maintenance at all.
You call that a what, Lynn?
A geodetic dome is aluminum dome or something like that over the top.
Oh, so it's not a concrete.
I wouldn't do a concrete on the dome part. Okay, I might do a geodetic or something like that. Just not making it flat, so you wouldn't have a problem in the future.
So you'd have you said maybe aluminum? How would that interact with the water?
It does
galvanic corrosion and stuff like that, or what?
No, you can do a self-supporting concrete as well. but it just needs to be done, whether you do geodetic or concrete.
So this price that you got right here, is this a reflection of the geodetic dome or?
This is all concrete, it's really, the cost difference is about the same.
And you have no preference on the geodetic roof?
No. This will not be flat.
I would expect the geodetic, they could work on it if something ever did happen, storm damage, should they ever get pulled off and
No, the concrete tanks that Cremwell uses and stuff have all geodetic domes up in the well field.
I passed y'all out a picture of the last one I built. That's a 3 million gallon tank that was built in Vernon.
And
And it was $3 million.
Yeah.
It has a, you know, I'm not sure if it had the concrete or,
If it did, it's still slow. They don't make them, we don't do them flat.
it was slow, but it, I can't remember if it's steel or concrete top on it. I think you've seen it before.
No, it's concrete.
So that's a concrete
Mhm.
dome?
Pretty cool how they build it. Now, these are like pre-stressed concrete.
Yes,
And they'll stand them up and they have rubber joints.
Mhm.
And then they go round and round it every inch or so with a
They just rack it,
Quarter
and then
inch.
they get it all wet.
3/8 inch wire and they plaster it.
Mhm. Yeah.
But you don't ever have to paint it, because when they plaster it, they put that paint in the, I mean, it's painted on the plaster.
Yeah.
So how thick is this? How thick are the walls in the silver 3 million gallon tank? You know, as far as that goes, I mean,
But they're 8 to 10 inches a foot, maybe.
Probably gonna be a foot. I can't answer that question because I don't know right off the top of my head how thick the walls would be.
And that reinforcement, is that rebar or is that fiber mesh or?
No, the fiber mesh is really not a reinforcement.
That top
What
picture
is
is
that? What is
the
that?
Yeah,
scaffold.
it's gonna be rebar.
It's all straight rebar?
Mhm.
Yeah, that metal is the scaffolding that
Mhm.
was used to build it. It doesn't stay there.
You get a picture of that one. It's got just the metal.
So
Yeah. Get one with this steel.
No, I just have, that's after the walls were up. So, inside, I'll have it.
There's the inside of that big thing down in the Mesa, and it's all concrete,
Mm.
and it's a dome.
Yeah.
this right here, you see this black, is that just the panels?
Yes.
Panels are covered.
So is that like an expansion joint there, or how, I mean, what I'm getting at, if that's what it is, I mean, does it expand and contract, or how does that work?
I don't know how that's gonna work on the expansion and the contraction. As far as leaking, these things don't leak at all.
pressurized, high PSI concrete?
Yeah,
No, I'm talking on the roof.
on the roof.
On the roof, it's not gonna have to hold water.
Yeah, they sure don't leak at all. And they do, once this tank is, they're completed, these concrete tanks, they do a water test on them where they fill them, and make sure there's absolutely 0 leaks on them. But there's this, won't be.
I guess I was just wanting someone saying, you know, on the durability over the life of that. I mean, you're looking at 40, you know, you got 40-year comparison here, you know, over 40 years, how's that? I mean, you got some tanks that have been around for 40 years, are they still in service, are they still good?
Yeah,
I mean,
Levelland has one that, the concrete tank that's criminal. It was built in the 60s. It's a concrete tank. It's still in service. Before we had to go over there, it had a flat top.
mhm.
and TCQ was giving them fits, so we, if you go to Lisa on Sherman Avenue, you'll see it looks like a gazebo. So instead of trying to, because they couldn't take that tank out of service, we came up with, that's really what it is, a metal gazebo lid that popped over the top of it, and TCQ approved it too, to keep it from ponding all the water around off that tank. You didn't have ponding on the tank, so, and, you know, it's big enough that they can get up in there and get inside.
So basically, over the course, you know, from that time now, they learned some lessons as far as the roofs and things and
Yes.
stuff like that.
Yeah. As far as longevity, concrete tanks gonna last longer, in my mind. I mean, just knowing what I know, because I know those tanks in Levelland were built in the probably early '60s, somewhere in there, when Canadian River went online. So they're still in operation.
How big were those tanks, you know, off the top of your head?
I think it's $500,000, maybe a 750. I'm not really sure exactly.
There's some other kind of tanks, like glass coating and all
Yeah,
kinds
they
of
do.
stuff.
They do have. There's
Never
Aqua Store makes a glass line tank. It's steel. It's a glass line. I'm not a big fan of those. I can tell you why. Because those are almost like a bolted tank.
Yeah.
There's no way for them to go in there and weld it.
Yeah.
So all you have is a gasket where you bolt all that together. And bolted tanks are, in my mind, is a lot more problematic.
Well, that's where I would think that you'd have a little bit more problems with expansion and contraction over, you know, hot day, cold things and stuff like
Yeah,
that.
well, you don't have a whole lot of problem with it leaking, until you ever had to do anything inside, like those old bolted steel tanks that are, you see a lot of those are, pretty tough, but you can't blast them at all. If you had to recoat the inside, you can't do that, because every time you hit that gasket, you're gonna have a leak right there, and you can't do that. So, the two best options are either a welded steel or a concrete tank.
So when you do a welded steel, how thick is the steel that you're using to construct that with?
That steel is probably gonna be, the bottom would probably be 3/4, ½ inch, something like that for that side. I don't know the exact dimension of that steel.
That's thick stuff.
It's thick too, that concrete stick.
It's on the walls and stuff. Are you still looking at ½ inch thick? Or 3/8?
On the roof? No, the roof is a lot.
No, I mean on the sides going up on the tank.
Yeah, as far as the design of that tank, I don't know, I can't answer that question because I don't know the exact thickness of that steel or the concrete for that matter on that.
So when you go in, just forgive me for asking these questions, but when they go in there and weld that stuff, when they x-ray all that stuff?
Yeah, you do radio x-rays on that, on those wells, absolutely. Yes. Yes, you do.
And then and then once you get it done, then you sit there and you gotta paint the inside of it or coat it.
On a steel tank, and a lot of times, the reason that's more expensive too is there's a lot more labor involved.
Right.
Because of the steel tank on the inside, you're gonna coat it, it's gonna be a 2-coat system. There'll be an epoxy, and then you have your primer and then an epoxy coating on the outside. It's like 11 mils thick, so you have to make sure that your paint is exactly when you're through 11 or 12 mils.
Right.
And after that, it's dry, you'll do a holiday test on that tank. And what that is you're testing for any pinholes in that tank. There's also, if you so choose to coat a steel or a concrete tank, which you can, it's a spark test on that. We'll tell you if you have any pinholes in that concrete between the paint and the concrete itself. Everywhere you have a pinhole, you'll mark that, and you have to come back, sand that back down, and recoat that. That's what you have to do. So steel's a little more labor intensive. Say in 20 years or however long that coating system, I put 20 years on there because that's a good number to look at for a steel tank. You go back in to recoat it. The inside, you'll blast all that off. On the outside, a lot of times you can, if you have a really good adhesion, which you should on that coating, and you will, you'll do an adhesion test on that coating, and then you can hydroblast the outside, so that those numbers that I gave you for the 20 years and 30 years, that's not blasting it back down, because when they build that tank, they're gonna blast all the wells anyway.
Right. Middle scale wells.
So, it's another thing you have to take into consideration.
So when they did, just say, you know, we got a steel tank, 20 years coming up, we gotta do that. What estimated cost of doing something like that?
About $1 million, about 450,000. That's today's cost. That's not projected out for 20 years. That's today. And those numbers are for anemic paint, which, in my opinion, is the best, longest lasting paint you can have. It's expensive.
Yeah.
Expensive paint, but it's the best.
Lot comparison between the two, if you did it all.
Sir?
And the life expectancy between the two, steel and concrete, by doing all that, it's gonna be about the same? Or
Yes, if you have to maintain that steel tank. You have to go. I've gone like to a water tower, so you can see a little rust on it. On the exterior, a $4 can of Krylon paint will go a long way to keep it from oxidizing. Just to keep it, you know, inside you can't do that. It's just totally different, and it's improved on the interior.
I get it, I understand. That's why I'm asking these questions.
No, that's good.
A lot of the old towers had lead-based primer.
Yes, you can always tell.
That's a whole new problem.
Typically on a water tower, or a ground storage tank for that matter, if you go underneath the coating and you see a red primer, a lot of times that's going to be lead. And that's a whole different ball of wax.
High percentage of the cities that build over 1 million gallon storage tank today are concrete, though.
Yes, for the most part, yes, sir. Just for the simple fact that concrete is cheaper, there's really not a lot of maintenance to do to a concrete tank over the life of that tank.
Any more questions about concrete versus steel? Leonard, as we go through, we've talked about this for a year now, this ground storage tank, and it's really not an immediate need, but it's one of those things as when we do need it, it's very needed. You're very familiar with our water system, and the idea with this is as Bailey County well field becomes less and less dependable, and as far as we're transmitting our water to town, is that we want to be able to have additional capacity in the event we have a major leak or a leak in our transmission line, to be able to have more than 1 day's water on hand, knowing in the future there may not be options for emergency water, and our only source being 17 miles away. We want to have plenty of storage to get us through a weekend or something until repairs can be made. What is your thoughts on this? Does it make sense adding this into our system? Does it give us some assuredness and some insurance of being able to supply water for an extended amount of time? So can you talk through that with us?
Yes, it's always a good thing from visiting with Mitch and Terry. With the addition of this tank, you'd have about a three-day or 4-day supply. Am I right on that, Mitch?
At the most.
Yeah. So you'd have that as a buffer with an additional tank out there. As far as, if you had a Bailey County line break and you're just waiting, so if the tanks are full, you'd have about a 3 to 4 day buffer right there that you could depend on anyway. Hopefully they get their line or their break fixed. As far as they're depleting, and I don't know, I haven't seen any tests or any hydrologic studies done on their well field to know what longevity of their well field is right now. I don't have any idea on that one.
So Mitch, can you speak to what Lubbock's kind of alluded to?
I talked to their main water guy. He's fixing to leave the city of Lubbock, but he said the long-term plan would be to mothball that pumping those wells is, shallow water and us too, but
Yes.
that's what shallow water only supplies.
Shallow water is highly dependent on that because their well field is not, can't produce what's needed right now.
And it's very expensive, so we really don't want to use it.
Oh, no, yeah. Yeah, especially if you're on emergency only, they're pretty pricey.
Yeah. You've really got two major things I worry about. One is a blowout in town, which, when that happens, first thing that happens is your towers drop. Because the towers are filled by pressure. And as soon as that pressure drops a little bit, alarms sound, and you can move as fast as you want to, you're still gonna lose the towers. Now, one thing about if the leak is bad enough, we can turn off the pumps and we'll lose the whole town. Then we'll have to fix a big blowout like we have on that 12-inch line. There was no way to turn it off, because there's a trunk that fed everything. And having more of storage in town, when you get your leak repaired, you're not dependent quite so bad on water coming from the well field to get caught up. And once you crank those wells up, we have pressure back in, what, 20 minutes?
Yeah.
From an empty line, which blows my mind, but it gets it up quick because we have such good capacity for pumping.
Leonard, with the depletion, you know, with our wells going down over the last number of years is during high peak demand in the summertime, you know, when we have those major leaks, the concern is when we lose Sand Hills ground storage, towers, and city ground storages, you know, it takes over a day, depending on day and a half, 2 days, if we add this, to fill that back up. That's with no usage. And so we've had that in the past where we get behind, we have lost the town, and then we're trying to fill everything back up and usage resumes, and it's days of on the edge of being able to get stuff filled up, correct? And so with this additional tank is in town is that we want to alleviate that strain on our well field and transmission to get it here to give us, to not have as much strain on our well field, I guess, to be able to meet demand. Does that sound reasonable?
Yeah, the more storage you have, the more you could rest some of your wells and stuff like that. Another issue about, transmission from there to here is a lot of times you may not be able to get it here quick enough. It's all gravity. Some of the line is not the best. A lot of that was replaced. So, there's a little bit there, but yeah, you would have that. You definitely have that buffer in town.
When we built the 3 million in Vernon, the biggest impact we saw is if you lose the line from the transmission, from bringing it in from the well field for whatever reason, you've got that buffer of having more storage in town. And that way, you're not having to use Lubbock water. You're using your own water. And it feels, you can fill it up during the night, and you can catch up, and you can store more water. And, a tough day where you're using a lot more than you're pumping, it goes down this far. With a half the size tank, it goes down that far.
Yeah. That huge tank we're doing, that 14 million gallon tank, that's exactly what that's for, the buffer. That's for 2 weeks of storage is what that is. But they've had it where they're highly dependent on Canadian River. They're at the end of the line. The Canadian River shuts off. They shut off for as much as 7 days. And then it is a nightmare. You get the prison and everything else there too. And that was one of the concerns there with this additional storage. You have it there where you can actually still operate and tell everybody don't flush the toilet, so to speak. So yes.
Later transitioning into the other part of this project with the wells, do y'all have any data on Dockham or Santa Rosa in that area?
There's very little information you're gonna gather from the Docklands, because there's just not a lot of wells that have been drilled down the Docklands. If you go up north toward Hereford and Tuya that way, you got a lot of really good Dockland waters you don't even have to treat. The further south you go, it's not that case. We did a Dockland well down at Seminole. It was 1,800 foot deep with the Water Development Board, just to see. And you'd think it was coming out, and we'd go, wow, that smelled or whatever. It looked really good, but the TDS, you drink that water and it was really, so it had to be treated with RO. And that's probably what you would have to do if you went down to the document here, but there's not a lot of information on the document that you can find anywhere, just because they're not, there's not that many of them. I do know that if you have and what they've done in Hereford too, that if you have an Ogallala well here, you can drill a dock right next to it, and you still use the same electrical and stuff like that, because you're in a whole different aquifer. So, but as far as exploring the use of the dock, that wouldn't be a bad planning to do that there at all, Mayor. At all.
Well, I know there's an engineer in Amarillo that we've worked with in the past that does a lot of Dockham studies, and I mean, what my understanding of that aquifer is it's in a lot of streams and rivers, and it's the closer you get to the cap, there's more presence than as you go up north. But what I've seen of maps is that it gets very scarce
Spotty
in this area.
Yeah.
But it is, we've got to start looking towards other sources in the future. And as we drill these 2 new wells, one of them could potentially be a Dockham aquifer then.
And another source that, for planning in the future too, is looking at the wastewater treatment itself. Is depending on what kind of treatment you're using, whether, if you went with an SBR or something like that, you could actually, you treat that water and it looks like a bottle of Old Dark that you're drinking. When you get through it, you just go right back through it. It's more of a mental thing for folks. They go, oh no, I'm gonna drink that, but.
What's that plant cost for a town our size with wastewater discharge per day?
With all the stuff that's going in for a population of about, I can get you some numbers for, spot on numbers or something like that.
Wichita Falls did that a while back, and
Yeah.
the engineer said that they, it pretty much made up for evaporation.
Yeah. Mhm.
It equaled that.
So you get your 210 reuse when you do that, so you can take the water and do what as you wish.
Does anybody have any more questions? I guess, this agenda item, are you looking for direction on this whole bond project?
If y'all want to at this time, you could say, I have it on the agenda where you could say, all right, let's put the bond together and bring it back.
Okay. Does anybody else have any questions for Leonard? I mean, like he said, is if we go out to bid for this, we want to move forward, is they're going to bid out a 3 million gallon concrete tank, but they're also going to put 2 1.5 million gallon steel tanks, welded steel tanks as an additive alternate, just to see if there's, one contractor group might be hungrier than the other.
It gives you a good feel for what each of them are going to cost. I know up at Floydada, I know that's what those cost. The concrete's a little cheaper than the steel for 2. So
I prefer concrete if we can get it, but
the one thing you really have to, and you have an ideal situation here, because your tank up there at the sand hill actually acts as a sand filter. Because the tank, if you just pump directly into that tank, you have a well pumping sand, that's where it's going to stop, is in your ground storage tank, and you have to periodically clean that thing out. Here, you don't have that. You do have a buffer up there at your tank up the sand hills.
What's the, I guess I'd say the construction time between the 2
as far as
The
building a
construction-
concrete and a steel one?
Construction time is gonna be about the same amount of time. Steel's gonna be a little quicker probably, than the concrete, and you're actually, they're gonna form it up there and tilt it, but I would still give them probably close to a year to construct.
So when you do a concrete one and stuff, and they come in with different batches, I'm assuming all that concrete is tested before they pour it?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah, and if it's not, you send the trucks back to the plant, get it till they get it right.
Now, steel tank, if we do additive alternate on there, when we bid it out, would that be about the same as the cost if we put a tank like that up at the Sand Hills?
Yes, sir.
But the thing that worries me about two tanks is just two sets of pumps, two sets of electrical and all that. I mean, preferably, and I don't know that we need to do that.
Well, you'd have the tanks tied together so everything floats, as far as that goes. The new concrete tank would, if it's concrete or steel, would have to match what you have there now, because you don't want one being 2 foot taller than the other for your overflow, so everything has to equal out, everything floats together.
So you're talking about the tank that we have right over here right now being tied in together, is that what you're saying, Eric?
No, the two new tanks would be, if there's 1.5 million, they'll tie together in one booster station.
What about just a concrete tank, would it be tied into it'd be tied into the other tank, correct?
Yes. I mean, but it will have its own set of pumps, correct, or what?
Well, you just have one pump station, yes. And what you could do there, let's say that, and I've done this before too, and it's, this is totally off the subject, but if you had to take down an elevated tank, you just lost your source of pressure, right? Except if you want to turn the pumps on, and I don't think the pumps are drives now. Are they on drives now?
One of them.
You could actually take the one that's on the drive and set it up, where you could take your elevated tanks down to recoat them or maintenance on those and have just the drive operate the city. I've done that for a small community that for about 2 months, and they just had just the ground storage tank and an elevated tank. We took the elevated off and had to be such that in the middle of the night when you have your leaky toilets, it just sits there and slurps, so you don't run out of water. But for 2 months, not one complaint with anybody running out of water, so.
Any more questions for Leonard? Leonard, we appreciate y'all coming.
Sir.
Absolutely. I appreciate all the questions, Councilman.
It's a lot of money, we're trying to make sure we get it.
Well, and at the end of the day, it's your system. It's not my system. I'm not coming here telling you what to do. This is your system. You're the one that's going to be operating, because I'll be retired by the time that thing is, I hope. You never know.
Perfect, you might hang around for a minute, but I think we've got what we need. Make a motion that we begin the process of the bonding out this package that we've done, talked about previously, and moving forward with 3 million gallon tank, or possibly, as we discussed, additive alternates of 1.5 million to 1.5 million gallons steel welded tanks.
Just to clarify, are you talking about the wells and other stuff included in the bond?
The way the agenda items are read, I don't know that we can do that, but I do, I guess to give you directive, if we want to begin the process of getting all that started, I mean, and we're bringing that back to us.
Got it.
So what's the motion?
That we begin the process with a 3 million gallon steel tank, or possibly 1.5 million gallon steel tanks, and the rest of our bonds, our lift station, the wells, everything, but, we've got to take action on that in the future.
You want to include wording for a concrete tank as well?
I think you meant concrete or 2 steel.
Okay.
3 million concrete or 1.5 million steel. You bid them out of preferred, and we'll be able to make the decision at that time, then the bids can come back, but I my preference would be the 3 million gallon tank, but
Yeah, I just wanna make sure we got our wording.
we want to see the prices, because if it's glaringly different, we may want to reconsider. So, does that give you what you need to get started?
If that's a motion,
Motion's been made by Eric, seconded by Kenny. Further discussion on this item? We'll have more in the future, but this will get us started. If no other questions, all in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed, the motion carries. Thank you, Leonard.
Thank you.
Is that all for you?
Unless you want to tell us about AWAS systems.
Do what now?
Unless you want to tell us about AWAS systems.
Hey, was?
Next, we'll consider and approve a resolution for an automated weather observation system, also known as AWAS. Mitch?
Mayor, I included some general information on the AWAS system and a copy of the letter of interest that was submitted back in 2017. In those days, it was 50-50 match and not very easy to do, but recently the Department of Transportation Aviation Division opened up a AWAS program to do a 10% match for AWAS is $200,000, and our match would be $20,000, and we figured at the most maybe $15,000 for the engineering, because a lot of it is already engineered. The state just kind of dumped that package on us to let us do it, but a lot of the things are already developed as a general way of putting this weather station in. It's something that would be really helpful to us, and I know our big corporate partner is a big supporter of the AWAS, and I have visited with them a little bit, and they said that they would be up for part of the match in getting this done. And they would help with the local partner on it. So anyway, I'm recommending that we make application online for the AWAS system.
It'll be a huge, huge addition to our airport, with especially the heavy traffic out there. So they'll be able to log in flight and see which direction the wind's blowing, and how high, gusts, cloud cover, things like that. So Levelland is the closest city to us. Levelland, Lubbock, and Plainview have one. North Shoe does not. Nothing close by does. So it's a pretty big deal. And we applied for this a long time ago and got awarded it, so basically it's ready to go. We just need to approve the resolution for the funding.
If that's the case, I'll make a motion to approve the resolution for the automated weather observation system.
Second. Motion been made by Kenny, seconded by Michael. Any further discussion? If none, all in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed? The motion carries. Next, we'll discuss Senate Bill 2476 and consider and approve the City of Littlefield EMS ambulance rate. Monica?
Oh, yeah. We'll let her talk about it.
Well, she's not gonna talk very much. She doesn't have a whole lot of voice here. But I will pare this down in the interest of time and boring y'all completely to death with it. This Senate bill came into being basically for two reasons. The financial failure of ambulance services across the nation, leaving a lot of holes in coverage out there, and the federal government passing the No Surprises Billing Act. I know basically the No Surprises Billing Act is if you're an in-network provider, you get paid more. If you're an out-of-network provider, you don't get paid much, and it's way below the cost of operation. Because of EMS's uniqueness, it is impossible for us to be in-network providers with insurance. It is basically impossible.
So with that being said, the Texas legislator came up with this Senate Bill 2476, and basically it eliminates the need for ambulances to do the surprise billing because it requires Texas-based insurances to pay ambulances at in-network rate. Okay. And basically they will pay ambulance services the lesser of what we charge or 325% of Medicare rates. They recognize the ability of local government to set those rates. Okay? So with that being said, you will have to, as council, set ambulance rates. This bill goes into effect the 1st of January, so we need to, by the letter of the bill, we need to set our rates prior to that, or we will not, or we will be held to the point that we cannot raise our rates over 10%. This is the one chance that we have to actually get our rates up to where the in-network rates will pay what they need to. And it only regulates the Texas-based insurance companies at this point. What they're hoping to do is use this bill on the federal level to make all insurance companies treat ambulance services the way they need to and pay them the way they need to, which isn't happening. Put in your packet some rates of some different ambulance services out there. Our rates under the Littlefield current charges reflect basically what Medicare pays. We have always mirrored Medicare in the past because they're a major payer. If you raise rates, it's not going to raise revenue because of mandates. With this new bill, we'll actually have a funding source out there to actually raise some additional revenue. I'm sure y'all looked at this chart. My recommendation to you is to set our rates equal pretty much to what the county is charging, which you can see is substantially more than what we are. Alton's on the high end, Earth is on the low end, but these are certainly below the 325% that's allowed, but still considerably more. Basically, by raising our rates for each 50% we raise, we're going to be able basically from our payer ratio to increase revenue about $17,000 for each 50%. So it's not a substantial amount of money, but it is a first step and a pathway to what we feel like is certainly going to be other states. California's already gotten on board with this same deal, and there's 6 other states considering it now. So Medicare is also making us gather lots of data, so they are looking at raising rates as well there. So that it would set us up basically to be on track for what we're expecting them to do.
Our EMS service has years of not breaking even and years of some profitability. Would you agree with that?
Yes, we run pretty close to the mark year in and year out as far as breaking even, but there are some years that we do fall somewhat short.
And our current rates are significantly, they were probably similar to other services in the area prior to this going into effect within the last few months of everybody reviewing their rates.
Yes.
But our service is one of the best services in the, or is the best service in the region, and we're currently significantly cheaper than other services and even within the county. And so what the point of this is our raising our rates. We only get one shot to get them up, and then we can't really adjust them more than 10% a year. Getting them equal with what other services are doing in the county and in the region, recognizing that we have the most qualified staff around, and we want to be able to certainly charge for it. And so you're in agreement. I mean, so the difference in the IRF rate and like the Seminole rate is from the SCT charge, and it would be your recommendation that we mirror Seminole's rates.
Yes, you know, Alton and Seminole, they actually mirror each other, with the exception of the SCT rate, which is just a misprint on the Alton's part. That's what they sent me, but it is a misprint. So, yes, Seminole's rates and Alton's rates mirror each other.
So the recommendation is to mirror Seminoles and Alton? Is that?
Probably with the information presented, I'd say Seminole.
Yeah, Seminole, because of that misprint in Alton's. Yes, sir.
That's your recommendation, correct?
Yes, sir, it is. That'll put us about middle of the pack out there as far as EMS rates in a large area.
I make a motion that we set our EMS rates to mirror Seminole's rates.
I'll second that.
It's been made by Eric, seconded by Eric. Any other discussion? Mitch, Mike, any more to add to that?
No, I couldn't add a thing to this. That's good. And it's, the costs are not going to do anything to go up. And doing this now would prevent a bigger problem down the road of having to react to losing a lot of money.
You know, it's always our hopes to have the users of the service pay for the service as much as possible.
Good move.
Less than the taxpayer burden, you know, so.
Thank you, Monica. If there's no additional comments, all in favor, say aye. Aye. All opposed, motion carried. Next, we will consider and approve a bid for the sale of trust properties in the city of Littlefield from Texas Community Groups, and this is appraisal district ID 17592 at 101 East Greenfield Avenue.
Mayor, before we go any further, I think I need to abstain from this item.
Okay, well, if you can remain seated there if you would like, just don't have any discussion on it or take a vote. So at this time, Mitch, if you'll give a little background, I'll get some people here to run it.
A while back, the Duran family contacted, I think, most of you here called me earlier and asked to, had interest in acquiring some property that was taken for taxes. The appraisal district actually took this action a couple of years ago, and so it is trust property, much like the ones that we do in our own decision. So what we do with trust properties is we put them on the Texas GC website, and they go on and we get bids, confidential bids from whoever wants to bid on it, and then we'll take that those to you to the council later to approve what to sell to. So I have on page 82, 83 is a list of the bids that were received. Have to note that one of the bidders, Kamumba Chibuko, has a debt to the city, so that bid had to be marked out. About halfway down the page, they bid $3,000 for the property. But if you read in your memo there, this property was sold off in part years ago, in 2006, and then it was seized for property, for back taxes, and then there's where we're at today. It's,
So we did this, the Durans had an interest in buying this property, and for the way for us to dispose of it is you put it on the auction website. And we took sealed bids like we always do. We've had, help me understand this bid sheet. The highest bid was from this Miss Chibuko, but she's disqualified because she has prior debts to the city.
yes,
The second highest bid is for $2,500 to Mr. Stinson. Is that
Yes.
correct?
yes.
And then the next highest bid is Tarango. Tarango. And then Melissa Duran is third at 750.
Yeah.
Is that correct? For 40.
Well, and there's another one from Hector Chapaco. 1,500, and then then there's some more bids, 800 from
The LLC. So the issue is this property was illegally subdivided in 2006, and a portion of the property was sold off without the back half. What is the line? It's going through a structure there.
that's a carport.
Renee, can you give us some history on this? I know she signed up to speak earlier, but then we were moving to the agenda item, so if you could.
Yeah, I mean, that house, I mean, I was born and raised here in Littlefield, that's where we grew up. And of course, we get over there, moved to Brownwood. I didn't have no intention of coming back, you know, Brownwood is where I was at. My dad got sick, they built him a house over here on East 8. He ended up selling the house to one of our nephews that didn't pay taxes, didn't finish paying for the house, as a matter of fact. Didn't finish paying my parents for the house, so. My dad got sick, we ended up coming back to be with mom, so, and this is where we're at now, you know, we're thinking about getting the house, hopefully we can get it, you know. Our intention is to getting it fixed, me and the wife moving over there, so rebuilding it and getting it going, so that's over there.
And y'all actually initiated this sale, as y'all came to the city and wanted to buy it.
Right.
And that's, we went through our normal process and put it up for auction. The issue is that we've had higher bids on it.
Yeah,
What's unique about this property is y'all own the back portion of
right,
this.
yeah, we're still in the back portion of it.
Of this
Still in
house
there
that-
for some reason, yeah.
That does not have legal access to it, is that correct?
Well, it's got alleys, but
Right
there's
now, on
no
the east side of it.
street. But it's got utilities, water and sewer down the north-south alley.
And y'all's highest bid was $750.
I can't remember what my sister put on there, or Jamie put on there.
That was from,
Third one from the bottom.
Yeah.
and that was from Melissa.
And we've got, and then what happened is we've got higher bids that came in too, so we're in a tough situation. We don't have to take the highest bid by law, but we do have to be responsible as well. Do you have an interest in, selling off your portion of the property to the purchaser? I mean, the property really needs put back together. It shouldn't have been subdivided when it was, but it was. And so the issue is we either let it continue to be a problem or we let it get put back together the way it should be. But do you have an interest in selling your
Right now, we don't.
property to the successful bidder? What is the option, what does it look like if we just reject all bids and make them do it again? Is there any
We could
reason?
do it. I gotta tell you though, it kind of
Makes our process.
ruins the confidence in people bidding. Right now, people bid on property put on there. We sell a lot of property and just vacant lots, they've been going for 2,000, maybe house is in fairly good condition on the inside. The outside is pretty rough, but the inside, I made some pictures and stuff, and they're able to patch it. So it didn't have any really bad problem, I think, because it has a metal roof, mainly.
I mean, if it was even somewhat close, it makes a lot of sense to sell it to y'all, to put the property back together. And like you said, if we reject all the bids, we have done this quite a lot and have confidence from our bidders. $250. It's about half, percent. What's y'all's thoughts? What do you do to solve this problem? I mean, we've not always taken the highest bid when we've had very similar bids and we've had an in-town buyer versus an out-of-town buyer. We've always given more preference to our locals. We haven't always taken the bid when one of our rules that we set up was we don't take them if they have outstanding debts to the city, which disqualifies the high bidder in this situation. But that's the reason we go to auction too, is that we don't put preferential treatment in selecting who receives these properties.
Well, one thing I might add too is, I'll go back and think, how could I have avoided this problem? Number one, it shouldn't have ever been subdivided. That was a mistake. That was something that somebody just didn't know better, and it just happened. And number two, if I'd brought it and said, okay, we want to sell this outright without taking bids, that's kind of outside of what we normally do. Plus, how much is enough? And the only way to really know what something's worth is to bid it out.
So we have a problem with this lot being subdivided in the future. I mean, we do have a bidder that has bid on it to put the property back together. It's currently should have never been subdivided. The issue we have is if we take the next highest bid, is we have two separate property owners on a lot that is not legally subdivided. And if we take the Duran's bid, is we get rid of this problem of having illegally subdivided property.
I think in early discussions with the Durans, they said that would be their plan, would be to repair that into one deed for one property description.
And the title company's been made aware that you talked to the title company, they know to be watching for this in the future.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, it just brings on that need for planning.
you don't have a direct bid.
I know it's a tough deal, it really is. I really think probably in this case, we should allow it to go back to one piece of property. And I hate that because it's losing revenue to correct a problem that we didn't cause.
How come you didn't bid more?
Yeah, it would have been better. That's the problem, we don't know what other people bid, so,
Right.
it's got to bid. And on the, of course, on the other side, it's worth, I would think more than $750. So, I think getting it back to one piece of
Can I
property
say
is
something?
probably.
We're willing to give whatever just to get it back, if that makes any difference.
We can't do that.
I kind of figured.
Yeah.
I know.
We've already sailed on it,
Yeah.
but,
Well, it's been sitting over there, I mean, I didn't think nobody was gonna bid on it, it's been there for years, and I opened up a bid, and by golly, everybody wants it now.
people
But
are
I don't
watching.
think people realize that they're not
Watching.
gonna get that back half.
Well, it's getting popular, you watch, people see
Yeah.
it's happening, and so they're watching.
I lean towards selling it to the Durans because it crosses this carport and other structures. It should have never been done, and it's not, we didn't cause the problem, we didn't catch the problem. That was back before a system was in place to catch subdivision. And I think the justification is, and it pains me to not take the highest bid, because that's the process
I know.
of, but in this situation, if we don't take the bid with being the adjacent property owner of an illegally subdivided lot, we just continue the problem in the future.
Well, Mayor brings up a big point there, where part of the structure is actually on the back, or on the opposite lot from this. So that's a inclusion, I guess, or whatever you call it.
And to the other bidders, is the justification they need to understand is that with encroachment issues of the structures, and that we don't want to be a party to a fight with the neighbors and having encroachment issues here. We don't want our police department to have to go break up that fight. That's where I'm at. I think this is a unique situation, but in this case, we've never had this in 5 years, 6 years since we've started this. And that's a risk as people come up and come to the city. So people come to the city and want lots because we just don't put them up immediately. But hey, I want to put a house over here. Here's several lots. They need to understand, and the coaching needs to be to them, is if you really want this, you need to make a significant effort to make sure you're the highest bid, because this is a sealed bid silent auction that you need to make your best attempt or you're running a risk of losing it. I make a motion we sell it to the Durans.
I'll second.
Any other discussion on it? Any thoughts?
I was just curious, when did that happen? I mean, when was it sold?
2006.
They sold it off. But the appraisal district seized it back in 21, 22.
My parents owned the front lot when they first, I guess that's the first lot my dad ever bought. So we built that house there, they put a trailer house there, built the house on the side. And then, years later, they told us that the back half, it was a different lot, that we had to buy that. We made it our backyard, and we didn't know. So my dad ended up buying that back half to make it all one whole, but it was under two different titles, yeah.
Okay,
So it was the same name, but it was two different titles.
Even before it was a problem.
Mhm.
And that's why the title company may not have noticed it when they did it, because it was previously done before that. Unique situation. Thank you all for making a bid. And I think Mitch, as you talk, if you get questioned on it, this is a very unique situation that has some very significant issues with it. And are you in agreement with that?
Yes.
All right. There's been a motion and a second to sell it, to take the Duran's bid.
Which Duran bid were we talking about?
The Highland.
That's the third one.
Yeah.
Okay.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
And all opposed? One abstains. The motion carries. Thanks, Dr. Kennedy. Next, we'll consider and approve bids and purchase of utility vehicles, Mitch.
I did our required by state law, we're required to take bids on any purchase over 50,000, and we anticipate this being closer to 100,000. So We took bids for 2 new utility trucks. Gotta say, I don't like the way the state law is. It's pretty much impossible to buy from a local dealer with certain brands when you can't get a price or a time when it's gonna be delivered. So that's my little commentary, but I recommend we accept the bid from Smith Ford family. We're the only bidder at $97,829.12 for the 2 trucks that meet our specs. I did also put in there bids for Chevrolets and Ford trucks through buy board. Buy board is a way to bypass the bidding requirements because they, as a group, they bid out different vehicles and everything in the world, and you can buy stuff off buy board for a small fee, and then the pre-bid, so you can buy them straight out. And in this case, they were actually more expensive than Smith Auto Family by just a very small margin. So I would recommend that we accept the bid, the single bid from Smith Family Auto.
Any questions on that?
These trucks are for
Utility.
utilities.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Now the trucks, that's different. We can't talk about that today.
That's fine.
That is for utility.
And we budgeted 110 for it. I make a motion, we accept the bids from this Smith Auto Family for the amount of $97,829 and 12 cents for the 2 truck, utility truck.
Is there a second?
Second.
Motion been made by Michael, seconded by Kenny. Any further discussion? If none, all in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed, the motion carries. Next, we will have a public hearing regarding ordinance prohibiting habitations of buildings without utilities. Mitch, would you give us a rundown before we enter the public hearing?
This is an ordinance to prohibit someone from, basically, I think they call it squatting in a building that they don't own or they don't have permission to be in, or substandard or for any reason why they can't have utilities, but it prevents someone from living in a building with no utilities, running water or anything.
Think it will help?
Quick question, if you don't mind, I'm kind of curious. What does that do with the families that are just dealing with hard times?
Like,
Can't pay a water bill, water bill gets shut off.
you can go up to 7 days, and, it's a case-by-case situation. It's like, enforcement of any law. If you have a situation where somebody comes in and say, hey, we're off, or we'll get turned back on in a certain day or something, then there's no use in enforcing this rule. But when you have somebody that just comes in and says, I'm not buying utilities from you, we'll just live in this house without utilities.
At this time, before we discuss it too much, we're in the public hearing phase of this. I now close this regular city council meeting. Open up the public hearing if you want to comment on this specific agenda item. Approach the diocese, give your name and address for the record. You have 3 minutes to speak. Ms. Sines, you've already spoke. Anything else to add?
No, it just,
If you need to speak, you need to approach.
yes, sir.
You're good. Anybody else? All right. I'll now close this public hearing and reopen the regular city council meeting. At this time, we will consider and approve an ordinance prohibiting the habitation of a building without utilities. Got a pretty good rundown on it. Mitch has been working on this. We've got problems with squatters around town and trying to get some more tools in the tool belt to get them dealt with.
Yeah, that's exactly right, and the judges helped me some on this, very good help on trying to enforce these rules, and just swings some of the responsibility to the squatter if we do have somebody squatting in a house, because most of our rules go toward the property owner, and in this day and time, you've got a lot of absentee property owners, you know, elderly, you know, they passed away and didn't leave it to their kids, or they didn't have anybody to leave it to, so that's why we're having to seize so many properties for back taxes, but it doesn't help us with this particular situation, and we probably got a half a dozen of these that we're gonna enforce this on, as, you know, if y'all pass it.
Entertain a motion to approve this ordinance.
One thing I better add, right at the last minute, we had a change there on the ordinance to allow for if somebody has an alternate water supply like a well. We wanted to clarify that a little bit so that under section A, that in red there is just some added language for if somebody has a well, which would meet our current rules and everything, but this would be a really unique situation where somebody had a water well. You know. But that's one little addition there for clarification. I will say there's a lot of things that can be done on this, and don't be surprised if we might come back later with some additional things that may help us fight this issue we've got going on. But this is going to make a big difference in the life.
Entertain a motion to approve this ordinance.
Second.
Well, I make a motion, I guess I make a motion we approve this ordinance. You can second it. Motion's been made by Eric, seconded by Michael, that we approve this ordinance. Any other discussion? All in favor, say aye. Aye. All opposed, the motion carries. Next, we'll consider and approve the 2024 ramp grant for routine airport maintenance grant. Mitch?
Mayor, we've done this for several years. Ever since I've been here, we've always taken advantage of it, but it's been on a 50% match. This year, they've raised it, or they've lowered it to 10% match. So there's a list on page 99 of the different uses for, but ramp program is kind of unique. You get the grant, and then you spend it however you want, as long as it meets these guidelines. And I was going through, and about half of those guidelines we've spent money on in the past through the grant program. I think probably right now there's about 3 or 4 things that we have already spent money on for maintenance of the airport that we can include under this, and then there's several more that we need that we can use this money for.
Entertain a motion to approve the ramp grant.
Make a motion to approve the 2024 ramp grant, routine airport maintenance grant.
Second.
Motion's been made by Kenny, seconded by Michael. Any other questions? None, all in favor, say aye. Aye. All opposed, motion carries. Next, we will have an executive session regarding real property according to Texas Government Code 551.072, deliberation about real property. It is 8:05, we have returned return to an executive session where no action was taken. This time we will move on to number 18, consider and approve action regarding lease of real property at the airport. I make a motion we authorize the city manager and the attorney to give notice of non-compliance with Building 7 at the airport and to work through with that owner to bring that building into compliance or to pursue termination of the lease in the future.
Second.
It's been made and seconded. Janine, are you clear on that?
Yes, sir.
All in favor, say aye. Aye. All opposed, motion carried. Next, we'll consider and approve a letter of interest regarding airport runway extension. Mitch?
As y'all know, or probably know, the feasibility study did not turn out to be positive for runway realignment, which was a really big project that probably tripled in price from the beginning of what it was going to cost. But there is an alternate in that feasibility study of a slight widening by 15 foot and then an extension of 600 feet, 400 on one end and 300 on one end and 400 on the other end. And that total cost is $2.5 million. And what I'm requesting is that we submit a letter of interest to the Department of Aviation, TxDOT, and ask for this. We're not obligating ourselves to any kind of match money, but if we bus funded, would be a 10% match, and which would be $450,000. But 6 years before we got AWAS in front of us, so who knows how long it will take to get this. And I would recommend we submit a letter of interest to TxDOT. No obligation.
I make the motion we submit a letter of interest regarding the airport runway extension.
Second.
Motion been made by Kenny, seconded by Michael. All in favor, say aye. Aye. All opposed, motion carries. We are adjourned. Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah, because there isn't one, but if you go from Lubbock to Clovis,
Trying to